Hi, I'm Ansley Stevenson, Capital Improvements Project Manager, and we're back at Mifflin High School. Teachers have returned today, and we're here amidst the hustle and bustle of teachers unpacking and setting up their rooms. We wanted to take you on a guided tour one last time to see the finished product, so come along. We're here in the new Student Support Services area of Mifflin High School. Before, these spaces were scattered throughout the building, and now students and counselors have a private space to access all of those student support services. We're sitting here in one of our 3 new extended learning areas at Mifflin High School. They're all furnished slightly differently to allow a different posture for students and staffs. Some of them are more focused around technology, some of them are more focused around lounge and conversation to allow students and teachers to pick the space that suits their needs for the day. We're standing in one of our completely refreshed classrooms here at Mifflin High School. Throughout, you'll see new flooring, new ceilings, new lighting, our new sound system that allows for an even sound distribution throughout the whole classroom, and furniture that was customized for each teacher to suit their needs. Looking at the refreshed auditorium space, you'll see new seating, new theater curtains, new lighting and sound system to support our next big production here at Mifflin High School. Here in the relocated weight room at Mifflin High School, we have combined the weight room and the health classroom. So you'll see state-of-the-art, new weight equipment combined with flexible furnishings to allow us to use this space for after-school events, as well as after-school weight and strength training. Moving into the art and construction technology spaces, which were both refreshed here, you can see in the art room, we've got completely new seating for 72 students, which supports both of our art classes. We've added a lot of built-in cabinets to support all of those art materials needed to do all of the different studio functions for our high school art students. Looking at our construction technology space, you'll see a brand new dust collection around the perimeter. This will allow us to keep a safe, clean environment to teach our students the critical skills to become part of our modern construction technology world. At this project, we left no stone unturned. As you walk through the building, you will see upgrades throughout. Our hallways have been completely painted, upgrading with new ceilings and new lighting. Our cafeteria space has been refreshed, all new furniture, all new flooring, and all new lighting. Our brand new gymnasium space has been equipped with everything we need for the next big game. We have new bleachers, new basketball hoops, and a completely refinished gymnasium floor. When you walked through Mifflin High School last school year, it was a dark, outdated, uninspiring space for our young learners. When you walk through this year, you'll see a bright, refreshed space that allows our students to dream big and achieve more this school year and many school years to come.
The record last year was 3-10 because we only have 5 players, and the record this year is 7-9.
We was gonna make a team at Lynn McKinley if we had a coach or if we didn't, and we're having people come to our games to come watch us play.
Share the ball a little bit more now, and I actually see the team as like a sisterhood.
To go into an actual program that does have those type of losses, you feel like there's no expectation. And I've seen from previous games that I had looked at that they actually were talented.
Oratiana, she loves to get buckets. Shy, she's strong with the ball. She'll body anybody. Faith, she brings the energy if we feeling down.
Denny is doing real good. I love Denny. I got to play with my sister this year. She's a freshman.
Marion Franklin, Christiana Towns, she had 35 points, 25 rebounds, and 10 steals. She averages 18.5 points per game, 9 rebounds, 6 steals per game. Our Mifflin game that we had, Tamaya Harrington, she had 27 points, 5 rebounds, 13 steals.
It makes me feel more confident. Start varsity as a freshman and play the whole game and make a lot of points with my teammates and a lot of assists.
Changing the culture means a lot to me. It makes me feel real good that people aren't just seeing Linden girls as trash. We here Monday through Saturday, so we really putting in the work, and I'm happy people are actually coming out and seeing us. We aren't just a team that's 3-10. We're an actual high school basketball team.
Once I actually did see Darthard and the program that he was actually running and how he was uplifting and actually caring, once they actually started to win games and to see their progress and to understand how much I did really care about them outside of just the game itself, it made them want to show up. It made them care. It made them want to actually work together and have a sisterhood to where they loved each other.
My brothers are Philip, LB, Chris, and Emmanuel. When I watch my brothers play, I look up to them and I play against them a lot. So it makes me a little tougher to play against girls.
The town's name is very strong in the community, and she's living up to her name.
My goal for Lynn McKinley is to win more games and set an example for little kids.
Being a senior is pretty bittersweet that the program is just getting together, and I'm about to leave, but I'm happy it got together. Coach means a lot to me. She is actually my NOACAN advisor, so I be in her office a lot.
Miss Crenshaw, she makes sure I make it to individual workouts, things I need help with to be better.
She set up some team bonding for us. We do a lot of stuff on and off the court. I do enjoy playing against East since they are our rivals.
I have fun playing against Kennedy from Centennial, Kayla from Centennial, Layla from International.
For college, I would like to study stenography. College coaches should recruit me because I feel like I'm a good leader, I'm a good listener, and I have good discipline, and I can push myself.
She's always going to put 110% into whatever it is that she does. So a lot of the times whenever coaches are looking for that one player, that spark, Tamaya Harrington would be that person. I cannot wait to see the young woman that she's going to become.
I just want to do photography and still do basketball. College coaches should recruit me because I put all the work in. I'm very humble. I could make buckets, and I like to share the ball and communicate.
College coaches should recruit Christiana Towns because of her work ethic, the ability that she has, which is natural, and on top of that, she's very coachable. It's something different whenever you have someone to step on the court that has an athletic ability, that has a game that is different than a lot of players that do play the game, and you can still teach them something.
My name is William Stinchcomb, and I've been with the Columbus City Schools for 23 years.
My name is Mr. Dorsey Birdsall, and I'm a safety and security specialist.
My name is Anita Roman, and I am a Columbus City Schools bus driver.
My name is Sammy Gonzalez. I'm a food service manager currently at Briggs High School.
I know that if I'm not there every day and on time, you know, that student may not have a ride to school. And that weighs on me heavily. And I take pride in knowing that my students can set their clock on me. I'm always, it takes a lot for me not to come to work. It's important to come to work every day, be on time, because we may be the only way that student gets to school.
Seeing the kids years later and having them come up to me and say how thankful and grateful they were and happy that, I kept them safe in the district, and, that I can't retire or leave the district until their kids graduate.
This was one of the best decisions I've made in my life. I didn't expect to live for this, but I love being part of the Columbus City School as a family. I just think because the building represents our districts, for me to see how clean the building is, I can take pride in my effort, and to put the cleaning and the organizing of the building, it just makes me feel a level of pride.
Peaceful mind can accomplish a lot of things. And when a student is hungry, their mind is oftentimes on what the next meal is going to be. In an indirect way, we affect the students in the kitchen. They can accomplish what they have to in the classroom. And for them to accomplish that, oftentimes that's going to better their situation for themselves, their family, and their community. So in a sense, helping the student in an indirect manner with the food is something that I really enjoy.
Columbus, Ohio has so much to offer our youth. The growth you can obtain from being a part of this district is huge. There is such diversity and learning experience happening throughout our K-12 buildings.
I love to see the excitement in the kids' faces when they know they can start school the very next day. So it's exciting for the families. So I think it's very impactful because it gives them that first start to, learning and growing.
I've been working with kids all.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Katzenmeier,
Present.
Mr. Dare,
Present.
Mr. Davis,
Present.
Mr. Lynch,
Present.
Ms. Price.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Great. Wait a minute, Zach. Okay, thank you. Quorum has been established. Before we proceed with the agenda, I just want to take a few moments to briefly review tonight's agenda and provide a high-level overview of the work before the committee this evening. So tonight, we will be going back to the charter again and approving that. And what we're going to make some changes to align it with Board Policy 0155, which is actually what sets up the charter. So we'll look at that. Following that, Treasurer Ryan Cook will provide a financial presentation on potential new construction funding. This presentation will provide the committee with an overview of funding considerations related to district constructions and capital improvement efforts. Next, Anthony, I'm sorry, how do I pronounce that last name?
It's DiGirolamo.
DiGirolamo.
He's not here today, so Maurice Woods.
Okay.
That's a little easier. That's easy.
Maurice Woods, Chief Operating Officer, will provide a presentation on procurement limits and reviewing the district's current procurement thresholds, purchasing authority levels, and operational considerations. We, after that, we'll have a presentation from committee member Martin Davis to discuss a project he's been working on. And then the final item will be just a kind of an open discussion on the Everett School and some related considerations to that. Upon completion of those items, we will adjourn the meeting. At this time, the chair will entertain a motion to approve and adopt the agenda for this evening's meeting as presented.
Can I ask for an amendment to the agenda?
Sure.
I don't know if we have to vote to approve it first. I would like to add a discussion on Duxbury as well to Everett.
Okay.
Because I think it's the same factual scenario.
Okay.
And I just want to have that public discussion about those two buildings.
Great. Added. So added. Or wait, do we have
To
to?
vote. So I make a amendment to change 3.6 to also include the Duxbury School, so Everett and Duxbury.
Second from committee member Davis. Clerk, please call the roll.
Okay, sorry.
You're good.
Ms. Price,
Present.
Mr.
Yes.
Lynch,
Yes.
Mr. Davis,
Yes.
Mr. Dare,
Yes.
Mr. Katzenmoyer.
Yes.
Approved as, agenda approved as amended.
Agenda, so that was the,
That was just amendment, we go back.
okay. So then,
Amendment, okay.
do we have a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
Motion to approve as amended.
Second.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Katzenmeier,
Yes.
Mr. Dare,
Yes.
Mr. Davis,
Yes.
Mr. Lynch,
Yep.
Ms. Price.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Great, thank you. First item is the approval of the minutes from our last committee meeting on March 19th. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from the March 19th, 2026 committee meeting?
So moved.
So moved. Do I have a second?
Second.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Price,
Yes.
Mr. Lynch,
Yes.
Mr. Davis,
Yes.
Mr. Dare,
Yes.
Mr. Katzenmeier.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Minutes from the March 19th committee meeting are approved. So the first item we have on the agenda is the committee charter review and cleanup. During our last meeting, we discovered that the board policy establishing our committee was different than the charter that we currently operate under for the ETRM committee. As discussed during the opening remarks, I will be asking for a proposed amendment to align the current committee charter with board policy 0155, which is the policy that creates the committees, regarding community membership requirements. Currently, board policy 0155 requires a minimum of 2 community members on the committee, while the charter language references 4 community members on the committee. The proposed amendment is intended to align the charter language with existing board policy through a simple one-word modification. So it currently says must be 4 or more. The language will be changed to what it actually says in our policy, which is 2 or more. This does not prevent any new members coming on at any other time. It's just to allow us to continue to move our business forward. At this time, I will open the floor for discussion regarding the proposed amendment, and we have included a copy of policy 0155 and a copy of the charter with the proposed amendment in your packet. Is there any discussion? Board Member Dare.
I would almost not think about this as, I know we are amending the existing ETRM charter from last year because it's our base, that's what we're starting on. But really, every year, the committees have to review and reapprove their charters. And so I guess for context, I think why the 4 was in there was because there was a conscious effort as we were creating the committees to ensure that we had more community members than board members. And we just wanted to state that. So we chose at that time to go above the policy, but really, and we're still learning on these committees, by the way, because this is not how these were set up before. So really, the charters should probably always go back to the policy itself, and then we as the committee or the board or whoever would maybe make some mandates or write that. So these are only good for a year. So it's not really, it is a change because we're gonna cross something out, but you know what I'm saying? I think aligning it, I think we should always start with the policy and then have the discussion on if we want to go above and beyond for some reason.
The policy creates the charter, so it supersedes that anyways, right?
Yeah.
Any other thoughts or comments?
I just have a point of clarification, because I know it's been a couple months since our last committee meeting. It was a pretty simple thing that we were voting on, but we had to table that in order to pass this and change the charter. Are there things that we need to go back and reintroduce and vote on again with this new charter?
That's a good question. The one thing that comes to mind immediately is the minutes from the last committee meeting, which was in June of last year, I believe.
Okay.
Good call.
So can we reintroduce that to vote after assuming we pass this amendment to the charter today?
I think that seems appropriate. Does that sound good?
Just to get the business taken care of?
Let's get it knocked out. That's great. Great idea. So, any other discussion?
And was that the only thing that we had to table from last time? Okay.
Yeah.
I think so, because we also ended up tabling the charter thing itself.
So the minutes actually were approved? You guys voted on that prior to getting to the charter discussion? So I don't know if you want to go back and unapprove them or?
I guess technically in our reading, the policy always supersedes, and so we were okay voting. We just were going by the old language, so that vote probably stands. So if we did vote on it, I actually don't remember.
I don't think we did. I think Board Member Simmons had tabled that vote because of the fact that we couldn't establish.
I know we didn't vote on the charter.
Yeah.
It says right here in the minutes, 3.1, the last sentence, following discussion, a motion to reconfirm the charter was withdrawn. The item was tabled for future consideration pending further review and potential revisions.
Okay, so it was just regarding this charter that you've all amended as a board. Okay. Sorry to get so technical,
No,
but
that's great. No, that's why we're doing it, so.
Okay.
Thank you.
Cool.
So I'll make a motion to approve this, change from last year's charter to align this year's charter with the policy of 2 additional volunteer members. And we actually have more than that, so.
Great. We're beating the policy. Is there a second?
I will second that.
Okay, thank you. Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Katzenmeyer?
Yes.
Mr. Dare?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Lynch?
Yes.
Ms. Price?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, great. Thank you all. Okay, so we're on item 3.2 on the agenda, new construction, financial presentation, new construction funding. Treasurer Cook is going to provide the committee with an overview of funding considerations related to district construction and capital improvement efforts, including current and projected financial impacts associated with new construction planning and implementation. At this time, I will turn the floor over to Treasurer Cook.
Thank you, Chair Katzenmeyer. Appreciate it. If we could, thank you, tech team. You read my mind.
Can I ask a quick question?
Absolutely.
Is this being streamed, is this part being streamed right now? Okay, cool. I just didn't see.
Well, good evening, committee members. We're here tonight to do a high-level overview of financing opportunities for potential new construction here in the district. And as we start, I think it's an important caveat to note, facility construction and design decisions should be strategically aligned to support the superintendent's academic vision and long-term educational goals. So everything we talk about here tonight is going to be conceptual and a lot of what-ifs, but it's important to remember as we talk about construction going forward, it's critically important that this is aligned to Dr. Chapman's vision and academic vision going forward. It's all about students, but that's driven by the academic side of the house. So I just wanted to get that caveat out there to start.
And our future education specifications.
Absolutely.
That the other committee's working on.
AFAC is working on a lot of educational opportunities, new visioning, et cetera. Academics drives this. I would think of a school district as a train when it comes to academics. The financial piece needs to be included, but we're the caboose. The academic vision and planning is really the engine that drives that. So as we look here at Columbus City Schools about the potential for new construction, right now we're obviously going through some financial challenges. We want to make sure we manage our debt levels strategically in the district. And one financing option that would be available is utilizing our permanent improvement levy. One way to begin to do that is through a certificate of participation. You'll often hear me flip to, we call it a COPS deal in my world. But what that is, that's really a lease purchase agreement. It's a 1-year renewable lease that can be renewed for up to 30 years. It requires a lien on the district property because, again, we're going out to market with this, much like a bond issue. It's just a short-term obligation that's renewed with appropriations yearly for up to 30 years. So a financial institution that would back us with a COPS is going to want to attach a lien to that so that they're guaranteed repayment. Payment source is not specified. However, we have worked with our capital improvements team this year to design and implement a capital budget. Mr. Woods is in charge of that team. We work closely with Mr. Trevino and his team to establish a budget figure. So as we navigate through this tonight, I've got a couple menu options. We'll talk about financing, but for fiscal year 27, we have allocated $10 million out of our permanent improvement fund to be set aside in case the board would decide to make a decision to proceed. What I don't want to have happen is a committee recommends, the board ultimately does, and we don't have funding available. So the capital improvements team has worked with my team so that they can plan their future projects around those permanent improvement dollars while making sure we have funds set aside should this proceed.
That's something you're always doing, or you've just started that?
We just started that.
Okay.
That was a big piece that I felt was lacking. We've had a lot of conversations around facilities during my tenure, but it's critically important that we have a funding source to be able to actually implement those ideas with. So we now have that set aside budgeted for fiscal year 27, should the board approve that. It's pending board approval when we do our budget. But we've allocated that with the team internally. They're aware of that. They're designing their projects and implementation and permanent improvement around that fund.
Yeah, remember, permanent improvement is new.
A separate bucket. It was passed in 2023. So this is an additional revenue stream. Much like this week, you saw the media release. Mr. Woods and his team, they're allocating $60 million this summer to invest in our facilities. Those funds are only allocated for facilities. Permanent improvement, tangible life of 5 years or more. This is not people. This is the stuff that people work with. Financing estimates for our permanent improvement funds. I have 3 potential options here just to give the committee an overview of what we could potentially do. I will also say that this is caveated by market conditions, et cetera, interest rates. So if we were to allocate $8 million of our permanent improvement funding, we could generate $124 million over 30 years towards a project. The $10 million that we actually have set aside and budgeted is $155 million. And if a decision were ever made to increase that, if we go to $12 million, it's just under $186 million or $185.5 million for 30 years. We could obviously go a shorter duration, but then again, that's going to be that much less that we're going to be able to finance because we're going to increase our payment, if you will. This scenario is like buying a car. How much of a payment do I want to make and what can I get for that? So this is, again, I'll caveat, a guesstimate tonight based on work I did with the facilities team last year. A big piece of our puzzle, and we're not going to get into the in-depth of this. This is a completely separate presentation. I know AFAC did have OFCC here. They're a wealth of knowledge. We are a partner with them. Our state and local share comprises 100%. 70% of that is locally. The state share would be 30. We would need to go back to OFCC to basically get on their budget, if you will. We would be at this point in time a year away from that conversation. I'll talk at a high level about that here in a minute when we get to facilities, but that's a future conversation down the road. So as we talk about what can we get, the shiny new things, the things that kids are excited about, that modern educational experience that we've talked about in AFAC, what can we get for this financing? So last year I had some estimates from our facility partners. Let's talk about an elementary school for a minute. A large elementary school would be approximately 1,000 students.
Normal size.
No, yeah, normal.
Large for CCS. Normal.
Correct. A normal size, large for us. Let me shift from our vernacular to the state.
Yeah, statewide. Right?
Good note, statewide. Approximately 109,000 square feet. OFCC estimate, approximately 40.2 million, and a developer estimate, 51.5 million. Let me take a second to talk about what that really means. So OFCC has what they call a design manual, and this is what they're estimating 109,000 square feet would cost based on what I'll call the book. When you get out into the real world, we hear about construction inflation, wage pressure, market conditions, et cetera. An actual developer estimate is somebody who's going to start laying that block, getting this thing moving, a general contractor. They are saying that it would be 51.5 million. Again, these are estimates, just to give you a ballpark idea of what the cost would be. At the 70-30 split, you can see I'm trying to highlight the shade. That 70% of the elementary school is our share. That white is the state. Again, 51.5 million, and that's about a third of what we have budgeted out of our PI at 10 million. We raise approximately 155 million. So we could do, in theory, 2, maybe almost 3 elementaries at that developer estimate. But it's also important to remember, when we get into OFCC, there are things called LFIs, locally funded initiatives. These estimates are basically what it takes to educate a student. These are classroom spaces only. These aren't athletic fields. These aren't fancy theaters. et cetera. Those LFIs, locally funded, means we pick up the entire cost of that as a district if we value those experiences for our students. So that would be in addition to these estimates right here tonight.
I'm sorry, Ryan, can you just repeat that piece
Yeah.
again, please?
So when you design a project with OFCC, you're beholden to their design manual. Locally funded initiatives, athletic programs, big fancy movie theaters, et cetera, those experiences that really kids value, that's not the classroom space, the box that OFCC is going to fund. That cost is borne by us. Those are additional ads that they think are great, but they're just not going to fund those because they have to stretch their capital budget amongst all these entities across the state. So they give you the basics to educate a student with classroom walls, and then we as a district say, thank you, but we, in addition to that, want to add these other experiences. So we bear the cost of those at 100%. And as we gain momentum and steam on this, I know the facilities team will do more of an in-depth. There's a lot of visioning that goes with that. I believe AFAC has gone out, looked at some districts that have had construction. We heard that at the meeting last night. I think that work's going to continue.
Can I just add?
Sure.
Here, just, we are in AFAC, we are working on some new terminology for the district kind of around this. So we would say that FCC supports our layer 1 academic services, and layer 1 are all the requirements that we must provide by the law, that the state, that the federal government requires us to do. And so that's really baseline. Layer 2, there's 3 layers. Layer 2 are those things that our community says, we know what the state is saying, but this is really our baseline experience we want for all of our students. So we really do want them to have a really nice athletic facility, so we will pay for that. Every school, no matter what, we value that. So that becomes a layer 2. Layer 3 are things where we basically are making decisions about these are services that we really like. Maybe it's not every school. Maybe we aren't funding it at every school, and those become layer 3. And so right now what AFAC is doing is learning about what we have basically in layers right now, 2 and 3, and then we're going to come back and kind of figure out what is 2, what is 3, and then that will start to impact what we as a community say are our baseline ed specs and what we would want in these buildings, and then what we would pay for local versus what the state would pay for in layer 1.
Okay. Hugely helpful.
Yeah, good connection.
Yep.
One comment on top of that too. While we haven't talked about the exact specifics of anything, I think it's both the intentions of board member Adair and myself to eventually combine these committees for a significant amount of time, likely starting later this year. So kind of we'll all be, as we get into the weeds of that, we will join up and also participate in that piece as well. So we're kind of all, I guess, learning the base of all this right now, and then we're going to move forward and actually make these decisions and vote on that.
Yeah, no, excellent point. I think it's fair to say we're building a foundation here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have, so what point is the community involved?
That's, well, for my part, and Patrick, we have to talk about it for here, but that's a mandate by our board, all of us agree. And so that's where you're seeing the educational visioning for us, we've already started that. And then we'll be going out and we'll be doing that work with the community. We have a survey that's going to be going out. And we've had student participation already. So 100%. AFAC has to do this work a little bit before Etrm because, again, of the order in which, Ryan was kind of saying, we really need more of the solid academic vision standard base, right, before Etrm can kind of jump into its community engagement. And that's why, Patrick and we really need to work together on this because when, you know, we go out as AFEC and we say, oh, let's do all these wonderful things, but it costs money and resources, and we have to figure out how we pay for it, and that's the work of this committee.
Yeah, I have another question. Now, would this include the taxpayer money? Is this part of the taxpayer?
Yeah, great question, actually. So at the bottom of this presentation, everyone should have a copy. As I talk about what the facility would cost, on the developer option, you'll see a state share figure, and then you'll see a local share. And that, I believe, Ms. Price, helps you see the local share would be 36.1 million on the elementary, for example. The state share at 30%
I see that.
would be 15.4.
Is your question, would we have to go back and ask for more money?
Okay, good.
More money.
Yep, nope, great question. So the answer to that initially would be no. We are working here tonight talking about existing money that the community has already been supportive of for the district. This is not additional tax monies. It's our existing permanent improvement levy. We're taking a piece of that and monetizing it so that we have a payment stream over a 30-year period here tonight, hypothetically. But we are not talking about any additional new taxes. Let me be clear on that.
If I may.
Sure.
Suggest going back a couple slides to where you lay out the 8, 10, and 12 million.
Yeah.
And I think to answer your question, Mrs. Price, the way I understand it, and correct me if I'm wrong, would be we've currently raised 60 million a year from the last PI bond.
Yes.
And so when we say we're going to target the 10 million, that means 10 million will go towards these COPs that we're issuing, right? And then the remaining 50 million will be able to be used how we currently use it.
Renovations.
Yeah.
So I think it's a great question. I think Martin's point is excellent. Budgets are about priorities, and those capital monies right now, like the summer improvements we have slated, these funds are coming off of that. So it's important that we maintain fiscal stability with our permanent improvement dollars. So we want to make sure we don't carve out too much of that PI levy so that we then inhibit classroom space renovations presently. So we're going to use our existing funds, make sure that we can still continue to invest in our other facilities, because as we go through this tonight, when you look at the budgeted figure of 10 million, it's 155 million that we can get today estimated. We're already at 51.5 million with the elementary. So we could do solidly 2 elementary schools theoretically. Middle school will hold the same. We'll talk about a high school here later tonight. But we are not looking to add to the tax burden with this type of a project.
And I have a final question.
Sure.
For me, at least. The cuts from the state of Ohio, how is this going to affect this whole picture and our planning?
It's a great question. Those are our general fund dollars.
Okay.
That is a separate bucket. So right now, that's not going to impact this. Okay. Obviously, with respect to property tax reform, it is a bit of, I said last night, an existential threat. We don't yet know. That is certainly a risk. However, when you look at facility issues, I've worked with bond counsel, there are all kinds of legal questions that remain, tax exempt status, IRS issues, federal issues that I can almost guarantee you will be litigated almost instantly. There is a lot of facility issues, not just in schools, but around the state of Ohio, that are backed and secured by tax levies. So it will be instantly litigated. But we will be safe at this point in time.
Okay, and I'm sorry.
And we have the 60 million going forward forever.
Correct.
Dedicated to the facilities. It can't be used for anything else. So we have to use that on facilities. And we know we'll have it. The state can't take it away.
Right.
So we have this kind of guaranteed stream.
Okay, what's the input of our new partner, the City of Columbus? The new person appointed, is he or she on a committee, or what is their role? And will the City of Columbus have any kind of insight, input in anything?
I'm not quite sure what we have. We are, I'll say it this way, because I'm not quite 100% sure what you're asking, but we are doing better partnership with the City of Columbus.
Okay.
We have started a council, school board, kind of joint committee. Limited of us are on it because then it would be a whole public meeting thing. We're not ready for that, so I'm not on it. But our leadership is. So we're doing more collaboration that way. We also have, we're sharing some staff. So I don't know if that's what you're referring to. Like, we're trying to open the channels a little bit better between our sister governments.
Right.
Yeah, to kind of talk about this sort of thing. And I know the project that she's working on with me on educational visioning, and then I know that also transportation, because there's a lot of coordination. So I'm not sure if that's what you were.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking, because, we're named after the city of Columbus, and in the past, we haven't had too much input from them or even support, so it's important of that new layer.
Yes, yes. And I do want to say, Ryan, because Ryan said PI, building, but PI is all the things. It's maintenance, it's everything. So I know we're getting really excited about building, but that's why it's important not to carve too deep, because we're always fixing roofs. We're always
So again, that
HVAC.
Budgets are about priorities, but
buying school buses.
we're a big district. We've got yellow buses, we've got roofs. Mr. Woods and his team could go on and on and on tonight, the investments we continually make out of our PI dollars. So we have to be diligent. I don't want to put us in a position where we spread ourselves too thin. And I'm comfortable with that $10 million figure, and it at least gives us a baseline to start these discussions around.
So that will,
Sure.
through the chair, so that really allows us to kind of start to balance our portfolio. So we can invest $50 million in improvements, HVAC, auditoriums, classroom furniture, but we're setting aside a percentage of that to allow us to potentially do a new building, which is really a good strategy.
That's exciting.
So,
If I may.
sure.
Flipping back to the, you're still in the elementary school screen?
You want me to run back?
Yeah. Since we have Mr. Trevino here, I am curious, just so that we level set for the community. Sorry, it's on the elementary school page where you put in the cost.
Nope, you're fine.
Can you just give us like a rough estimate of, like you said, this is just to get us classrooms, right? So when we want to put auditoriums, we want to put playgrounds, we want to put any sort of athletic facilities on it. Like, do you have like a rough idea of what we?
I don't want to steal it if you want to, but those are going to be, I think, based around the layers that board member Adair talked about, and they're all over the map.
I mean, I'm always a little reluctant to, I'll tell you what historically has happened.
Okay.
It's probably a reasonably good indicator of what would happen going forward. The district has not invested a tremendous amount of LFIs at the elementaries. There are some, and they mostly have to do either with quality of components, market conditions, but I can't say there's many that have to do with space.
That's why we have gym at cafetoriums.
Yes.
It's a good point.
Yes.
Also remember, the smaller the buildings are, so the vast majority of our new elementary buildings are at that 350, 400 size, which everything comes down in size, which makes that cafetorium space challenging regardless. But just to give you the most recent examples, like if you looked at Ecole Kenwood, Spanish Immersion, Georgian Heights, Old Orchard, if there are LFIs, they are minimal. Versus when you go to a high school, like let's use Afrocentric, and it's a little bit of a strange example because of how we did that building, that standalone field house, all LFI, football stadium, running track, tennis courts, baseball, softball, 100% LFI. It's a little bit different when you look at the other high schools because most of them are historic. And so, but even still, when you have those auditoriums, even though they're buried in the buildings, 100% LFI. Local dollars paid for those renovations at 100%. Same is true for the athletics. I think maybe what has shifted the most, that's a little hard to anticipate right now, is we've really seen this move into the school-based health clinics. So if those were spaces we wanted to see at elementary buildings, those would be 100% LFIs. Unless we agree to carve space out of our baseline program, which the state might agree to, but that would come at the expense essentially of enrollment. So you might take a couple classroom spaces and kind of repurpose them for it. So I don't know if that answers your question, but we've not seen a lot of LFIs at the elementaries, limited, and then as you move up into the middle school, certainly the desire for auditoriums and that high school athletics as well. But that certainly could shift too as buildings get larger and we try to drive more programs into buildings.
Yeah, I think it's important to go back to that caveat I started with. This is really going to be based around the superintendent's vision, which is going to encompass those layers that board member Adair talked about. We're really at a very low-level conceptual stage with respect to where we're at foundationally on building anything. And I think Mr. Trevino's right. There's just so many unknowns at this stage. This is really more about how much bang for our buck can we get? What are our options with, are we looking at 5, 6, 7 buildings here? Reality is, as we go through this tonight, we're at 2 elementary schools with my best guess here. As we flip forward here, we're in the same boat with middle schools. Again, it's just based around those costs that we see here tonight. So again, just 1,000 student elementary, but a bigger or middle school, but 140,000 square feet. OFCC estimate is 53 million, and the developer estimate is 66.3 million. So again, with $155 million of budget capacity to work with, we're looking at 2 facilities at the middle school level. And again, these could go up. I would love to say they go down, but I think, as we all know, when you go to Home Depot right now, nothing's getting cheaper, and we're not immune to that. So we're really looking at 2 elementaries, 2 middle schools, and again, this has that example of a state and local share at the bottom.
And really, we're looking at the local share plus LFIs.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Paying for each of these, okay.
Which is exactly why I wanted to bring that up and make sure we level set with the public of, like, when we look at these figures of 36 million for an elementary, 46 million for a middle school, that's not including the spaces that Mr. Trevino just talked about. And so we want to make sure we'll want to make sure we leave additional capacity for that.
I just noted, I've got this labeled elementary. It's actually high school in the facility. This is, in fact, the high school we're talking about here.
Oh, it says elementary?
Yeah, I just caught it. It's a high school for 2,000 students, 316,000 square feet. So this is a big facility.
It's normal size.
I know. Normal size around the state. Big for us. Big for us. Yes. OFCC estimate, this is where it gets really interesting. $121 million. Developer estimate, $149 million. So we are really bumping up against that capacity. Now, I know we have that 70-30 split, but this is based on information today that's already stale. Costs haven't gone down. So I think, based on what we're seeing here with the budgetary figure, I would put a question mark around a high school at this point. Because again, I think it goes back to a lot of work has to go into the academic visioning with the superintendent, the input from the community on what those layers are, and that's really going to be the finality around what does this type of a facility cost. So I can safely say, based on the estimates, we've got opportunities with respect to elementary and middle schools. I want to just put a question mark around a high school because there's just so many variables and unknowns. I can't definitively tell you that we could do one because I don't know what those layers are going to be. I don't know what the community is going to value. We have to gather that input. We'll get there. And then again, that might lead, we're probably not doing this immediately, we may adjust that budgetary figure if this is the superintendent's vision in conjunction with the Board of Education. If that's the priority, we might go to a $12 million figure. But I'm very comfortable with 10 at this point. That's a conversation for down the road, again, depending on how this process plays out.
Maybe you're gonna get there in your graph
Sure.
slide in a second. But, so, I mean, to me, it makes sense to go ahead and start taking some of the money and like investing and doing the COPs so that we have options. We do have a lot of work, like, you know, we are trying to even figure out if we want to do something like more like community campus style, where we are having multiple type of buildings on a site. So, I mean, we have a lot of work to do in the academic visioning. Because remember, this isn't like what we have. We're going to maintain what we have and do all the things we need to do. This is really about pushing us towards the future and what is that going to be. So we have a lot to talk about with the community. But I guess I'm saying, like, what would be a timeline for this, Ryan? Like, if
Great question.
when would the board have to act to lock stuff in?
Yeah, okay, so this is a two-part question. I'll start with what I consider the easy piece on the financing. If the board said, we want to do this, we can finance tomorrow. I would have the funds in our bank within 12 weeks. So we would be way ahead of any shovel that goes into the ground. I think, again, it's going to be a timing issue with respect to facilities. There's a bit of a dance on that. I think if the board said go on a timeline, we are at least a year away because of that partnership with OFCC, because we want to make sure we capture that 30%. That's going to help us expend our dollars further or extend. But from a financing standpoint in my office, we would have funds in the bank within 12 weeks. That's the easy part. The hard work is what we're now starting here tonight, the discussions, the community input, figuring out what do our students need as we go forward.
I mean, so let's just pretend that, you know, this committee says, this is great, let's recommend it to the board, and the board is like, this is great, and we vote on it, you know, we're
Hypothetically.
for this hypothetically.
Sure.
This isn't, and we vote on that the last meeting in June. That's very fast and very hypothetical.
Yes.
But the timeline would be, you're saying the money's not really the problem. It's like, then the money would sit there, we have to go through the FCC process, which is a year. I mean, they don't just hand out money. You gotta get on a list,
Yep.
they gotta have the money. And then we wouldn't really be putting shovels in the ground, because we then would have to wait for FCC, right, before we do design. And then we do design and all of that, and it's really not shovels in the ground for like 2.5 years from the time the board would vote, right? I'm looking at Alex, because I think,
I mean, you would spend a solid year just in design.
Right.
And that's after we have all the OFCC stuff.
You can't do design before you have the OFC, you can't get started on design? Sorry.
You're getting into territory that I can't speak to well, because it's been too long since we've started a project.
Yeah.
I think there are mechanisms where it's possible, but I'm certainly not gonna put words in OFCC's mouth. And they've also just gone through a lot of transition there too. Yes. So we've got some new relationships to work on with some new individuals there, but.
So, sorry, just to back that up for a second. The safe timeline would be a year working with OFCC. If we said hypothetically today, June, whatever, right?
Correct.
Work with OFCC for 1 year. On the other side of that, now we've come up with a plan with OFCC. They've agreed to what they're gonna fund. Now we can finish the design, then we can go out for bid, then we can actually start building?
Right, so I would expect at least 1 year to get through OFCC process, at least 1 full year in design, and 2 full years in construction.
Yeah, okay.
That's what I would
You're in
plan
a
for.
3 to 5. Again, I think this is, you know, Columbus is growing. There's a ton of construction around. Manpower is going to be an issue, again, depending on scale. So I think Mr. Trevino's right. We're looking at a 4-year, I think, is a safe estimate, but it wouldn't surprise me to see some delays on things at this point in time.
Okay, I have a question. Land, where is all this wonderful stuff going to go?
Oh, we got the land. We got the land, and we can work on that. I mean, the land is not our problem.
Again, I think, great question. I think Board Member Adair is correct. I think that is going to be answered again by where the superintendent thinks the priority is going to be based on that academic vision and community input in conjunction with the Board of Education.
Right.
All, again, to be determined. Tonight, I get to avoid being the caboose. I'm really on the bleeding edge of this, just to show what's possible with dollars.
We're building the track right now.
Yeah, we're building the plane as we fly it.
We'd love to get in the train. That's why I'm asking the timeline.
Yes, so I would love to answer your question. I'm not well equipped to do it, because I think, again, we've got layers, we've got the superintendent's vision.
Right.
We will get to that point. I want to convey to the committee tonight that we do have options with respect to funding available, so that we can move to match that vision when the superintendent and the board are ready.
Yeah, and I think also it's important to include your community, because some communities feel like that maybe it's going to be.
Well, and Ryan keeps saying the superintendent's vision, and that's fair, because she's a CEO and she is the head of our organization. But in truth, and she would be the first one to tell you, this is our community.
It's driven by the
vision.
community input, those layers,
We have to
So
have
that's what
big community
that's what
meetings,
this is all about.
big,
Yeah.
because we
For
don't
sure.
want to exclude any marginalized areas.
No, I would
or
agree.
City.
Yeah, and I think that's what, if I understand it correctly, the new term, the layers, that's what that's going to come from. That's the community work groups that we're having, those layers of
Good.
our non-negotiables, those 3 that Board Member Adair laid out, that is the community. That's going to roll up then to the superintendent.
But there's also, there's the vision and the specs and what's going into the building, but there's also the need to decide the location. the where, which is less of a vision question and more of a
Community
necessity.
question.
Almost like a logistic.
My community is
Yeah,
gonna be
yeah.
left out.
Population.
Yeah.
all that.
Yeah, what are we gonna do? Is it with this United Way?
Yep, exactly.
Exactly, okay.
And then is there, to Ryan's point, also is there transportation considerations we need to think about as well when we're talking about that?
There's a lot. We're baking a cake, but we've got a lot of ingredients to get that cake to taste good, and this is just one little piece of the vanilla that goes into that recipe.
If I may, I have one question. So we're looking at this in the light of taking this 10 million a year, setting it aside, being able to use it purely from new construction. Is there an opportunity to use it both somewhat for new construction, one part, and like another part for quickly being able to renovate and add additional capacity to our existing buildings?
Can additions get
Yes.
OFCC funding?
I would want to revisit that.
Depends on the building.
I think you can, but again, I think it depends on, there's a lot of variables. Yes, it's eligible. I just want to caveat it with an asterisk and have a conversation with them. But yes, we could. Even if OFCC said no, we can monetize for a COPS deal the same. So we would be able to add on a wing to an elementary, high school, or middle school, for example.
And Ryan, would it be, would it be like this comes out yearly? So every year, we get the full PI from our tax base?
Yes.
Would we be setting aside 10 million a year or whatever number? So really this number continues to grow?
The 10 million would be
No.
fixed. We would lock in that 155 million, that would come to us. This 10 million would be payable in 30 annual installments for that. Strategically, and I really don't want to get us too far off on the weeds, but all of our bond debt falls off the books in 2032. So we can start this, and then we would have additional capacity for no new millage at that point in time. Based on what I see today, then we would refinance, if you will, and take this out with a bond issue, and that would then put that $10 million a year back into the permanent improvement fund. But that's longer term. That's just one of a bunch of different options that we could do. But yes, this $10 million
Yeah, so it's
is
a one-time, oh no.
annually ongoing for 30 years. It's a $10 million a year payment.
Okay.
We're basically doing a mortgage, a 30-year mortgage, and it's $10 million a year of the PI. So again, back to Mr. Woods and Alex and his team, that's why we don't want to bite off more of the apple than we can chew, because we have a lot of facilities that they're touching every year, and that's based around these PI dollars that Dr. Chapman and Mr. Woods announced just this past week. So this is just one piece of what we can do. We've budgeted it, we're comfortable with it, and it will get us potentially 2 elementaries, 2 middle schools, and I'll say a question mark around a high school, just because there's so many unknowns. And I think that leads into this last, as we've seen tax exempt interest rates here. I mean, no surprise. Interest rates have been on an upward trend. We have no idea what's going to happen with respect to the market, but that's going to dictate some of how much money we can get on that $10 million. So all of this is based around market conditions. We have no idea what the future holds. Bond rates have been somewhat steady over the last year. I mean, I'm not anticipating a major uptick, but again, it could happen. So we'll revisit this calculus as we begin to solidify the foundation on building as it goes through committees, community input, et cetera. And then we'll really drill down once a decision is made one way or another. But I guess to summarize this, we have a lot of possibilities in front of us. We have funding now budgeted to work with to make this a reality if the board chooses.
I mean, should this committee make such a recommendation, even though, because the timeline is so long on this, that we have all the time to still do all the things we need before shovels even get in the ground. I mean, is it your recommendation from the financial standpoint and the team's recommendation from facilities that we actually make this recommendation to the board to consider to begin to really start this, so that the board can act and we can start with the COPS now to put money to.
Yeah, I mean, I think if we can have an organic conversation, from a financing standpoint, I would be comfortable with that. I think I would defer to the 2 board members here if that's a comfort level for you. But I think at some point, Mr. Trevino and I talked about this earlier. We do need to make a decision, and I think that decision is what really then engages us as a unit on both the finance and the academic and operational side to now move this more beyond a conceptual stage. So I think, yes, that recommendation would help us then say, we now have a task at hand and a mission to work towards and advance that to the board.
Yeah, through the chair, and I agree with Mr. Cook. I think that, you know, one of the considerations is the longer that we delay making this commitment, it just continues to push the timeline out. I think our community expects us to make some investments, like our surrounding neighborhoods and communities. So I think timing is important. And then I'm also concerned about where the interest rates are going to go.
Yeah.
So we can lock in an interest rate?
We would lock in once we make a decision to finance. I do think it would be premature to lock in any financing because I'm going to have issues with a bank that's going to say, well, what are we, I don't want to attach this lien to Afrocentric, for example. We'll navigate that. Mr. Woods did touch on something important there, not just interest rates. We do have inflationary pressures. We've got supply and demand constraints. I don't want to say what it will or won't be, but, you know, net present value, there's never a cheaper time to do it than today. So I do think it would be appropriate, at least in my opinion, it sounds like Mr. Woods as well, for a recommendation to at least make a decision to kick this forward to the next step. I would be okay with that.
I think, and I would say that's, you know, that's kind of been my goal as well. I think to, you know, with this discussion, I think what I am trying to figure out is how, I guess, vague or specific that recommendation should be.
I think it should be vague.
Yes, obviously vague.
But I think it could be something like, you know, in light of all the information this committee has heard, this committee recommends that the board take this up as a discussion item, and this committee would recommend doing the COPS, but the board would need to figure out the number and all of that. I'm not sure we have enough to make that recommendation. I mean, other than your.
I think we could seek certainly authorization, much like I do with the refunding, that authorizes me to go out. We could have some further conversations at the board level about what that looks like. We've budgeted. The board may have a different opinion on that with respect to me, but it would certainly solidify fiscally and operationally what our mission and target would be. I think that's a conversation that should certainly include, after a committee recommendation, Dr. Chapman, which I know you are lockstep with. But from my standpoint, it would really help us to start to have more gelled conversations around where we're heading.
Yeah, and I would just like to remind the committee that we actually do have an FMP in place, the 2022 FMP. We have identified potential sites for investments. Through this committee and through the leadership of Mr. Katzenmeier, we will be taking a look at those recommendations because we have new data and information now, utilization rates, shifts in population. So we could quickly, or let me pause for a second. I don't want to overcommit. We could revisit the 2022 FMP and potentially bring some updated recommendations to the board for consideration with the funding potential.
Now, the question that I have is, what, with the sales of the buildings, does that money go over there to help that? Or
So
where
if we dispose of an asset, that would go into our permanent improvement fund?
It would, okay.
Certainly would, yes. It's required by law.
Okay.
I do want to just say, because the public will be like, but wait a minute, you guys have already said publicly and voted that you're going to do and be building certain buildings like West Broad Elementary, something on Fort Hayes for an elementary school for the arts. You know, we're you know, in a relationship with the city around Mifflin, middle school property. So, you know, we've made some commitments, and I think back to what Mr. Woods said, it's kind of figuring out what is the right thing to do with this, because also part of this is showing the community what the future looks like. And so picking the right site, where we can start to show more of this community collaboration, I think is really smart. And I think the community is waiting for us to do it, to Mr. Wood's point. So I just want to say that publicly, because it's not, because we have said things, and the board has voted, past boards have voted on certain schools and parcels and things like that.
So I guess in conclusion, as your
Yeah.
CFO, we are ready
Right.
and willing to support the direction of the board, and we can move rapidly to put the financing in place.
So you would be ready to commit if it is our recommendation that it's 10 million, you had mentioned that 12-week timeline to just get the funds together to have the first annual payment towards the COP. Okay.
Yes, it's budgeted, and if the board says go, I would be on the phone the next day.
Okay. And I just want to make a comment too that especially reading a lot about the improvements funding that was discussion this week, that it's really important that the community understand how this works and what the legal guidelines are, because, I do continue to hear a lot about how this is very complicated for the community to understand when we are making budget cuts of $50 million a year, and that there are certain buckets of money that have to go in certain places. And so I just, as a community member, continue to encourage, leadership and the district to continue to make sure that people understand why certain decisions are made financially in this way, because there are a lot of conversations around, well, yes, we're cutting the budget, but also there are different buckets by law that have to go. That's just a comment from.
No, I think that's an excellent point. I want to reiterate, I got the question from the media yesterday, and I think you're spot on.
Yeah.
There are two distinct buckets that we've talked about. We had the unfortunate issue where we've been underfunded at the state level. That's our general fund dollars.
Yeah.
We are talking here tonight about that second bucket, permanent improvement. We are unallowed by law. We cannot spend those funds on people and programs.
Okay.
So again, I think, Mr. Lynch, that is a very good point to highlight. We're underfunded by the state in our general fund. The community blessed us with a permanent improvement fund that we are talking about here. Those funds can only be utilized for property, plant, equipment type purchases, not people. So I want to be clear on that, and I appreciate you reiterating that and pointing it out.
And can I just, again, because I get to be the old board member now, even go back a little bit. Remember when we came out of the teacher strike, and we know that facility and conditions have always been a challenge in our district. And so when we came out, the board, taking what we heard from the community during that event, really listening to the teachers, listening to the community, saying, you know what, you're right. We got to do something with our facilities. And so we came to the voters. We asked for there were two different things we asked for. We asked for general operating dollars and the permanent improvement. And really it's by law that we can't move the money, but it was our voters in the ballot language that said, this is the only thing you can do with the money. And it was in the ballot language. And that was intentional because we were listening and we needed it. And this was the first time we ever had this dedicated fund. Otherwise, this is what would happen. And good or bad, a situation just like this, they would never do a Salem.
Right.
Yeah.
We would never be able to buy new furniture.
Right.
We would never be able to, because those are the first things, and that was the history of the district and why we had such conditions in our facilities, because we were always being cut by the state. The treasurer walked through that historic timeline.
Yeah, it was way back.
Of the 25, 30 years of just cutting from public education. But we're always pulling from that. And our community said that's really not fair for our kids. And so just to put that context out there, that it was a very strategic choice at the time. very innovative for our district. And again, it's all the things we've talked about. It's the buses, it's the getting a new track, it's the furniture, you know, it's the things that when our community walks into a building, they feel cared for, and it creates learning environments that are going to help our staff teach and our students learn. And so, you know, just kind of that reminder that we chose this as a community, and unfortunately, it is the State House that is doing this to us, where we now have a problem on the general side. But again, thank you so much, community, on the other side, because we are able to continue this work and give our students these great, better, more modern environments, and we get to plan for the future.
Yeah, board member Dare is absolutely correct. We call that in my world deferred maintenance. And if we didn't have the community support on that, a lot of these items, the break fixes, would have to come out of our general fund, and it would be compounding our general fund problem as well. We would have capital expenditures and the underfunding from the state of Ohio as well, and that would just be even more catastrophic than what we already face. So those permanent improvement dollars are allowing us to protect our general fund and invest in our students.
Good.
I want to ask too, because I know that I don't want to get too specific as to the community values having space for people on IEPs who may be overwhelmed by a large set. That's like getting into stuff that we're going to talk about. But I guess, you know, I believe we should recommend to the board, you know, that we make choices like we've discussed today to set us up well in the future for that construction. Obviously, as the Equitable and Transparent Resource Management Committee, I want to ask, you know, what opportunities will we have to engage with Dr. Chapman to, you know, utilize the reason why we're here as community committee members, and kind of get a better understanding of what her academic vision would be, since this should and will align with her academic vision. So a lot of words to ask, you know, what opportunities will we have to understand what that vision is, if that is still in progress, as I'm sure it always is, what that process looks like for us to make sure that, you know, we have open communication with her to understand as we make these choices.
And that's what, when we were talking about the joint committee meetings, because these things are so put together.
Yeah.
Because she comes to all of the academic meetings and her whole academic team. So I'm like, where's everybody today? I mean, it's like full of all the academic people because we have so many programs and things to talk about. And so yes, you need that, and the other committee needs this.
Right.
So that's why having and doing it together makes sense.
Okay.
So yeah, in the fall.
Okay.
It's going to be a lot more people in a room.
Yeah.
We'll go back to the MECA committee. Okay, I've been patiently raising my hand. No, it's okay. These are great conversations.
Only 5 times. I've been counting.
That's all right. Thanks, man. I appreciate you having my back on that. So I just want to, for anyone watching the recording, I think everyone in the room probably might understand this, but Mr. Lynch and I were recently having a conversation. We were talking about, like, man, it'd be really great to see CCS playing basketball and football against, like, some of the other districts in the region, right? And so he went back and looked in time, and because he realized, I think at the time he attended school, we were Title I, right? Or sorry, we were Division I. Sorry, Division I.
Yeah.
And now we're no longer Division I, right? And so I think for the community, just to level set, when we talk about, like, the size of these schools and being big for this district, yes, it might be big for this district, but when you look at everyone around us, that's what we've been referencing. And to give you a really good, clear picture, if we don't build this high school, I know it's a question mark, but if we didn't build this, we're not playing Division I sports with the other teams.
I think those are the opportunities that we need to offer our students. Because to your point, they're getting that elsewhere. To me, that's competitive balance that you see out there in the business world. We're competing. But those are opportunities, and I think the board will have those conversations. I think the community priorities will rise to the top, and I'm confident as we go through the process, we will land on what's best for students.
And I will say, I believe, I'm just trying to look it up, because I think I saw an article that actually we're getting another adjustment with the divisions, at least for football.
There have been some shifts.
Yes, there's been some shifts, and again, because we are because everyone's getting normal size, we are not moving, we are getting pushed down into even the lower divisions.
I appreciate your time. Good discussions.
Wait, sorry, I have one more. This is going to be my crazy one, but I want to throw it out there. So, I appreciate the conversation about OFCC, but I do also want to level set with the public. My significant other does work in the industry and literally got an estimate 6 months ago, and that estimate has doubled in 6 months. And I think if we look ahead at the world at large, the economic conditions and everything that's going on, it would not surprise me, maybe not a double, but it's not going to surprise me to see significant increases. And so when I look at this split and I say, OFCC, if we go through all the rules and we agree to everything they want and blah, 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 and they give us 30%, but if the time of waiting that 1 year costs us more than 30%, I think it might actually be a smart move for the community, for the board to consider even bypassing OFCC, not because I want to lose that money, but there is a real risk here that the longer we wait just introduces accelerating costs that we're up against.
Yeah, and I touched on that. I think when we get more of a formalized go-ahead, we will certainly run those analyses with respect to that. Because again, I do want to highlight, and I think that's duly noted, these are really estimates, and it's based on data that's stale. So I think once we engage in the decisions made operationally and fiscally, we will really start to sharpen that pencil because, yes, I echo your concerns. The market moves really quick right now.
Can I ask one more question regarding the repayment process over that course of time? What kind of safeguards are there in place, for example, if hopefully this doesn't happen, but like if there's even more of a deficit years and years to come, and there's like appropriations of funds where, like how do we make sure that the $10 million payment over the course of 30 years is appropriated into the board's budgets?
Sure. We would be obligated. It's a great question. I touched on it at a high level earlier. It is subject to annual appropriations. We would have to do that. They place a lien on our facilities. I've gone through this before. It's not as simple as, well, we say we're going to pay you $10 million a year. We're still working with commercial lenders on this. They have their investors that back these deals. They're going to place a lien on our properties to make sure that they're insured against that risk. But we would annually appropriate this. This is now the first year we have a capital budget. I'm excited for that. It's unlocking these possibilities that we're talking about tonight, and we will continue to make sure that we have that available as long as the board directs.
Okay.
So it seems like a good next step, board member dare tell me if you think this is right, might be to, at our next board meeting, then consider some language that is a recommendation to push this off. I think we still have to like figure it out a little bit, and we'll be talking about it in the meantime. But it does seem like everybody here at least is ready to do that, and we need some kind of launching point. And I think that kind of makes sense. That's about where where we're supposed to be at per our charter, anyways. So I guess we'll try to get some kind of language together and review that collectively in between now and our next meeting, and then have a recommendation vote. Okay.
Yeah, well, thank you all. I'm available for questions offline anytime you need. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Treasurer Cook.
Well done, Mr. Cook.
All right, next up, we have Maurice Woods, Chief Operating Officer, who is going to provide a procurement limits presentation. We will review so we're going to zoom in now and remove a few zeros from our discussion. This presentation will review the district's current procurement thresholds, purchasing authority, and operational procedures, as well as compliance considerations related to procurement activities and approvals. The big picture here is to look at what operationally the district is able to do, and the way I think about this is to create a more efficient operating team as they're operating. So go ahead, Mr.
Thank you,
Woods.
Chair Katzenmeier, and I think zoom in is the appropriate language. Maurice Woods, Chief Operating Officer. Thank you for allowing me to come and present in front of you. Thank you, Chair Katzenmeyer, Board Member Dare, and committee members. We do want to talk today a little bit about our thresholds, and we want to talk specifically about how our thresholds compare to the Ohio Revised Code, city, county, and local statewide peer districts. Can we go to the next slide, please? Thank you. So we have a board policy 6320. It sets purchasing thresholds for the district. You can't see this, but on the right-hand side at the top, it identifies that the policy was last revised on 7/1 of 2015. There has been a few updates by Neola on their purchasing policy, one in 2017, one in 2018, one in 2019, and most recently in 2024. But we have not taken advantage of those changes and updated our policy. A few of the highlights on the left-hand side of the page really identify what our thresholds are today in the policy. Under $10,000 is considered a small purchase. Between $10,000 and $25,000 require informal solicitation. The way to look at that is basically 3 bids from competitors on the item. And then over $25,000 requires a formal solicitation. Formal solicitations usually come in the form of a request for price, a request for quote, an invitation to bid. It involves sending out communications broadly through our purchasing system. There's a timeline associated with our formal solicitations. So there's a lot of energy and effort that is going into procuring items that are over $25,000 today. Next slide, please. So we took a look at the revised code. There's 2 that really impact this particular policy. Ohio Revised Code 917, talks a little bit about increasing their threshold from $25,000 to $50,000, and that was done in the year 2017. Just recently, they set the competitive bidding threshold at $75,000, and what's interesting is they actually added an annual increase of 3% for each of the following years. So if you look at the current threshold today, 2026, it's actually up to $79,567.50. So the ORC threshold, $79,567, Columbus City Schools, $25,000. We'll talk a little bit more about peer comparisons in the next slide or so. The second revised code that we wanted to call out is Ohio Revised Code 3313.46. And this code basically requires competitive bidding only for construction projects and school buses. So the revised code basically says for a lot of non-construction and non-school bus purchasing, you are not obligated or required to even have a competitive bid threshold. Personally, I do believe there's value in having competitive bid thresholds.
I would agree.
Yeah. It's for the record. So this graph, next slide, please. We went back, we took a look at, historically, how long has it been since we've modified or adjusted our competitive bid threshold? And as far back as we can identify, over 25 years, we've been at this $25,000 threshold. First thing I want to highlight is the green line. If you look at the green line, that's just the threshold from 2001 that's been adjusted for cost inflation. And you can see that in today's dollar, that $25,000 would actually be, where's my number here, $46,000 in 2026. The point that we're trying to make is that over time, the $25,000 threshold really limits the purchasing power of those dollars because of inflation and cost adjustments. The other thing I want to highlight is the red line, which actually identifies the threshold for the Ohio Revised Code. You can see how it stair steps, and over the last couple of years, it's been adjusted for the 3% increase year after year. Next slide, please.
Good graph.
Thank you. So it's always important to look at our peers. And we wanted to take a look at the city of Columbus. We also wanted to take a look at Franklin County. The takeaway here is that the city of Columbus, their ordinance actually requires a reasonable effort. And I'll draw your attention to the quotes. It's a reasonable effort to secure 3 bids for purchases between $5,000 and $50,000, and a formal solicitation for over $50,000, and this is specific to goods and services. Separately from that, they require a reasonable effort to secure 3 bids for purchases under $100,000 and a formal solicitation over $100,000 for construction. So they actually have different thresholds for non-construction and construction. Franklin County is very similar. We're still verifying the non-construction thresholds, but at the end of the day, you can see that literally for most any of their purchases or procurements, the threshold for a solicitation is $79,567.50. Next slide, please. I know you can't see the chart on the right. I'll call out the highlights for you. We are a participant in the Council of Greater City Schools Act Point data collection process, which allows us to benchmark against K-12 urban school districts across the nation. The line chart on the right identifies nationally what the district is for schools that are participating in the CGCS database, KPI database. The green line identifies that the median is approximately $52,000 for competitive thresholds. And the bottom chart, the orange line at the bottom, represents Columbus City Schools. And you can see what our threshold is at $25,000. I'll also have you note that we are 3 districts away from districts with the smallest or the lowest threshold for purchasing. The second chart on the bottom pretty much identifies the same things, and this is focused on construction thresholds based on the Council of Greater City Schools data. The chart that really caught our eye is the table on the left-hand side of this presentation, which shows our Ohio peer districts. I will draw your attention to the largest school districts on the chart, which are Cincinnati and Cleveland. And as you can see, they have formal thresholds, $100,000 for Cincinnati for non-construction, a $75,000 threshold for construction, and for Cleveland, $50,000 for non-construction, formal threshold, and $79,000 for construction. All of the other districts do not have a formal threshold or a threshold for formal procurements based on their current policies. So what that allows them to do is literally use an informal 3-quote process to make purchases for anything over $50,000. We haven't identified what the maximum limit is on that, if one exists. And the caveat being for construction, they have to do a formal solicitation for anything over the $79,567. So I presented some data for us today. I want to pause. I went through that fairly quickly. I want to see if there's any questions, and I'm open to any feedback or suggestions on what we could do to move this work forward.
And before we get to questions, I just wanted to point something out. I should have said this in the beginning, but this was a request from me to the district to put this information together. So this isn't this wasn't the district coming and saying, hey, we need this. I realized when, we had our first board meeting, how, in my job, I'm working with other cities and counties, and, we're typically on either $50,000 or a $75,000 threshold, and, 25,000, just seems, almost prohibitively low, and, has the potential to create a lot of additional work and delays as we are seeking, as the district is seeking these dollars. So I wanted to see what this looks like compared to other districts. I mean, can you speak at all, Mr. Woods, to the situations where things might move smoother, or we would be able to help our students and our facilities faster if we, were able to bump this up? Is that a need?
What I think you're asking is for me to identify what are some of the benefits to increasing our threshold, right? So, and a lot of those come in the form of time and efficiencies, which is what you were touching on. So, a few of the benefits that we and that I have identified really involve kind of the speed of purchasing. By taking the threshold up to the ORC minimum, it really allows schools and departments to be more nimble in how they address students. That's first and foremost. So there's a speed element. I reiterate that when we do formal solicitations that have to go through the board, there's a entire process that is required for us to go through that adds months to the procurement process. So this obviously increases the speed. The other thing is if you think about the resources that are required to create the documents, to bring the items forward through the board, it puts a strain on not only departments, but it puts a strain on the school and the purchasing department itself. So there's currently a lot of time, energy, and effort spent on reviewing these documents, moving them forward for items that are significantly below the ORC threshold. It allows our purchasing department, which is something that I've been pushing and promoting, I think on our really large computer purchases, our fuel purchases, et cetera, I think we should be allocating and dedicating a lot of our procurement resources to negotiations, to finding the most competitive vendors for those large, big ticket purchase items. If we're allocating a lot of our resources to, the smaller procurements, it's probably not the most effective and efficient use of our resources as we move forward. Obviously, it's consistent with state law. It brings us more in line with our peer set as well. Those are just a few of the benefits that I would highlight by doing this.
Thank you.
Did that answer your question?
Yeah,
Okay.
perfectly, thank you. Any?
Did you want to go?
Yeah, so I will say Mr. Woods reached out to me
Say that again?
Mr. Woods did reach out to me with respect to the threshold. I am supportive of the threshold, but I think it would be imperative that we have some guardrails with that. And I say that because I don't think he's wrong when we need to focus our time, effort, and energy on the big ticket items. But I would say, in my experience as a CFO, those little purchases add up, and we can't discount the fact that there is a substantial amount of small purchases. So the caveat I would like to see is a requirement of 3 quotes or estimates with this. And then if you're unable to obtain those, and I would certainly not be exempt from this, I would need to obtain an exemption, have another form that I complete that is signed off by either the superintendent, the treasurer, or the internal auditor as a bit of a control mechanism, so that if I'm required to sign that and I see those with respect to other items, I can pick up the phone and say, hey, walk me through why maybe you don't have 3. Because I can tell you that these little items are substantial. I agree with everything that Mr. Woods said from a time, effort, and efficiency standpoint, but I do not want to discount the volume that could fall below that $75,000 threshold as well. So, and I apologize if I jumped in front of you, Board Member Adair.
No, that's good. I was just going to ask Mr. Woods, because these policies, so the ETRM work plan last year did have a review of purchasing policy, LADE policy, cooperative purchasing policy. We just didn't get to it because we did joint committee, because we had other things that came up. Remember, Ms. Price remembers. So we didn't get to this. So I think it's 100% that we need to review these policies. My question, I have a couple. One, is there anything else in this policy, if we're going to open the policy, that we need, just as Treasurer Cook said, that we really need to look at? Because what I would prefer, instead of just changing a number, is to actually dig into this policy and make sure it's working with red line copy. And then I'm also, second question is how, like when we first were setting this up, we were talking about kind of the order in which we should do the policies, because they kind of interact with each other. The cooperative purchasing policy, and then we have this LADE policy. So my question is to you, like when you are talking about the threshold change, I think you did mention cooperative purchasing in your presentation, but what about LADE? Do we feel like this would be a benefit to that process or to what we're doing with that currently? Because that also needs to be reviewed.
So great questions. I'll take them one at a time. And what I will say is, from a policy review standpoint, I do believe that there would be value in potentially bringing in general counsel, reviewing the Neola. Again, this policy hasn't been reviewed since 2015. There's probably some additional changes and edits that we would want to consider if we're going to do this right. So that's my opinion on that. And then as far as the LADE, so as Mr. Cook mentioned, there's some pros and cons with taking the thresholds up. We actually reached out to our LADE outreach committee members, called them, had some conversations with them. We spoke with 6 of them specifically. By the way, some of our committee members work with the city and the county, so their thresholds are already higher, right? But you know, we, based on that feedback, we see that there are some risks that it poses, but it really allows our vendors to potentially grow a little bit because they can get potentially larger contracts. We think that it allows some of our larger vendors, and it allows the districts to maybe bundle or unbundle the work so that they can get it done faster and get contracts faster, which opens up an opportunity for some of our local small vendors to participate. So I can see some benefits coming from us taking the actual threshold up. Obviously, there are some risks, but that's my feedback to your question. Did that get?
Yes, thank you.
Auditor O'Connor, do you have any thoughts on
Absolutely.
Let me move my mic.
You probably will be surprised, Adam, though, because as an auditor, I feel like this is just, it's been stagnant for so long. We did have an audit by NIGP, the Institute for Governmental Procurement, back in 21, and they recommended at that time to align it with the state when the state purchasing was at 50,000. Okay. And I concurred with that because I just believe efficiency should drive this. As long as we have the guardrails, which Auditor Cook talked about, and we get the quotes, I think that's the important thing for me. And then just as we go through the audits, you know, if there's one department that is consistently not getting the quotes, we address that on a one-off rather than penalizing everybody across the district and pull it back and all that stuff. So okay. I concur, and again, Mr. Woods and I have been in contact about that. Mr. Trevino and I a couple of years ago talked about this because it just needs to happen. So, and I really love the escalator being in there so we never get stagnant again. It automatically climbs up, so.
I think it would be fair to say we've had conversations around academic return on investment. Mr. Woods is right here. There is a business return on investment with respect to this. I too fully support.
So let's do this then. How about, can we request as a committee for Mr. Woods, Auditor O'Connor, Treasurer Cook, and probably the superintendent or Alex,
And legal counsel.
and legal counsel, to maybe prepare a recommendation,
red line of
that
the
red
policy.
lines the current policy. So we're hitting we're not just crossing out 25 and putting in 50. We're making all the updates, and then we can vote to recommend that at the next committee meeting. Does that sound good to everyone?
Through the chair, I'd like to pose a question.
Sure.
And I'm looking at Ms. Adair, because she's a little bit closer to the policy committee work. I don't know when we're crossing over in committees.
Let me explain how it should work. So because this is this committee's kind of technical charge, it's okay for this committee to go ahead and do a red line. Okay. We might, after we talk about substance and like, what do we like, we could send it over, we don't have to. We could send it over to policy if we feel like we need like a more technical view over the whole thing, just to make sure it aligns with the other policies. But really, if legal counsel's involved, we should be okay. So it's totally fine. I mean, to be quite frank, all of our committees can really only act through policy because that's what the board does. So it's 100% appropriate for this committee to pick this up, do a red line, and then communicate obviously with Chair Ingalls about that to see once we get it back if policy needs some sort of technical review of it, and if not, it can go to the board.
Okay. Great.
I just have one, I mean, I'm fully in support of this, just to be clear, but one question I might have as concern from the public is there any publicly verifiable record of some of these purchases that we're talking about?
Excellent question. Yes, there is. My office keeps copies of payments, receipts, et cetera. Those are all on file, publicly available. And that's why I would have the recommendation.
Every single purchase made by?
Everything. Purchasing department keeps it. We have it. We're subject to annual audit. Those are reviewed even internally by the Office of Internal Audit.
Yeah, I think where maybe my question is kind of headed is like, is it normal to make that public? And I only ask because I think sometimes one of the things we're up against is a perception of like, where's the money going? And in a district this big, it's such a hard question to answer, right? And so I'm just curious if that's a normal thing to do, if there's reasons not to do that.
Public record.
It's all subject to public records law. We're required for that information to be out there. I think we had a conversation today with respect to cybersecurity. There are very narrowly defined things that are shielded from public records law. Finance is open. I fully support that. It is the public monies. It's the right of the public to have access to that when they want to request it. And there is a process on our website through our legal department for that. But yes, it is required by law, the Sunshine Laws, and I fully support that.
Cool. Yeah, I was just more thinking like, is it normal to actually proactively publish that out instead of waiting for someone to make a request?
Yeah, I think it's becoming more prevalent. The state of Ohio, a few years back, I think it was Treasurer Mandel did the open checkbook. There was an initiative. We have Socrata on our website. It's not great. We are now in the process of transitioning to OpenGov. Again, I think anything we can do to be fully transparent with our community, because they can't always make a meeting. They can't tune into Facebook. I want to make sure that they have that information readily available and accessible, and be available to maybe answer the why behind some of those purchase questions that I can help or point them in the right direction. But it is, in this information age, very, very normal for that to be available to the public.
And we do get public records requests for that information today. You know, it's usually identified by project numbers or a period of time. So when they come in, we fulfill those requests.
Can I ask a couple questions? But I think Auditor O'Connor, were you going to say something?
The only thing I was going to say is we would just have to build procedures to make sure every department, because we're very decentralized, is maintaining their quotes in a consistent manner, storing them so they are available if we do get a public records request.
Through the chair, that is part of our purchasing handbook that we share with all staff around the protocols and the procedures for making these purchases.
Okay. Can I ask a couple of things? Number one, kind of related to that, is what kind of auditing measures, if any, are done? Well, obviously there are, but what are done under like the current discretionary lower level purchases, since that's going to change if this threshold were to increase, and higher dollar numbers will now be discretionary level spending?
Again, as we plan audits, they're all risk-based. So if we had a purchasing person in food service leave and somebody new comes in, the risk goes up a little bit, we might be in their area looking to make sure they're complying with purchasing procedures. So it would be done as part of our regular risk-based audit.
Okay, great.
From an external standpoint, we have Auditor O'Connor and his team that look at us internally. We also have the state of Ohio that audits us externally, and they audit to policy, state law, compliance, et cetera. So if this policy shift happens, they're going to hold us as fiscal folks accountable to our policy.
Okay.
As well as this gentleman right here.
Yeah. And then the other thing I was just curious about was this 3% change in threshold by the state level. Is that 3% annual in perpetuity, or is there like a cutoff time for that? So for now, it's just consistently 3% this year, 3% next year, 3% the next year?
That's correct.
Okay. Okay.
And I have seen where they do evaluate that pretty regularly, and they'll make adjustments to that if needed. So if it gets way up there, they don't feel it's right, I would feel that they would make the adjustment.
Okay, and is it your all's understanding, this may be like an opinions-based question, but would the idea be to align this threshold with the state, or is there a number in mind that aligns with where the district is at? If it's, say, 50% instead of the annual statewide level, what do you all think about that?
Well,
if anything.
I can jump in just based on this audit report we had done 5 years ago. That was their recommendation to align with the state.
Okay.
And because they're a national organization of government procurement, I would think that that should carry some weight.
Okay.
And you go. Yeah, so, thank you. Through the chair, in my opinion, I would want us to consider looking at non-construction and construction thresholds, and they may not have to be the same.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
I think state law keeps us ahead of the game in the long run. I would encourage you to look at our investment policy, which is very simple and is aligned to state law.
Okay.
I think that Chair Katzenmeier said maybe bring this back the next meeting. Is that enough time to redline, to work on these sort of things, to work with legal? Like, I'm just like, because I just want to be realistic here.
Yeah, so this will be a collaborative cross-functional effort.
Yeah.
And I actually reached out to our policy expert, Kyle, right? So I think she's already thinking about this, but it will involve or include support and resources from General Counsel's office. So if those are available and we can get those, then I would say yes, that's enough time.
Okay. Great. Okay, so the outcome is the administration, Auditor O'Connor, Treasurer Cook, Council will redline policy 6320 and bring it back here and we'll give it another look and approve that recommendation for the board.
Great.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Next up, 3.5. We have a presentation by Committee Member Martin Davis, and I'll let you take it away.
Oh, thanks. I do, yeah, that'd be great. I was gonna say.
Do you want me to click for you?
I mean, you can try, I don't know how that.
It wasn't working, so I was standing next to
Whew. Whew. Okay, there we go.
Hold it.
Yes.
I think it's a tap.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you, everyone, for your time. So I'm going to talk a little bit about something that I've been doing over the past couple months. Let's call it planning the future of our district with the Etrm committee. All right, I'm getting the hang of this thing, I think. All right, so I think this marks me being on this committee for a year, I'm pretty sure. And so over the past year, I've collected a lot of feedback from community organizers, parents at my local playground. I think probably almost every single face in this room I've collected feedback from as well. And then over the past few months, while I've been on paternity leave, I've actually been trying to take that feedback and organize it into a framework that we can use. So let me just take a quick step back of like a lot of what I've been hearing. So a huge consistent theme that I hear from the public is students on buses for less than 30 minutes if we can do it. I know that's a huge change. I know that means a lot of things. Also access to IEPs, APs, and extracurriculars at their local neighborhood schools, right? And then another major thing that I hear is everyone wants like a holistic plan for the district that is both transparent and equitable, right? And I know that we'll need to align with Dr. Chapman. It's too bad she's not here tonight, but I think we can support that effort, right? Yeah, I definitely, okay. Definitely getting used to that. So let's talk about the process that we're going through. We've kind of mentioned this, but I think let's just formally put it out there so there's no confusion for both committees, right? So we have the AFAC committee, and they're gathering feedback on what the community wants. And then they're going to translate that into ed specs, as we keep saying, or education specifications for the long term, right? And so that's really going to be the community's answer to what should every school be, right? We're going to have it written down in great detail, and it's going to be something that we can build upon, right? But then I think this is where this committee really comes into play, is what are we going to do with those ed specs, right? And we need to turn those ed specs into a plan. And so the Etrm committee, I think that's where we'll be working on how we're going to get there. And we're going to, I think, hopefully be able to use the framework to build scorecards for every single building and then be able to incorporate the public's feedback about those buildings into it, right? So the ed specs tell us what we want to do. The scorecards are going to show us where does every single building stand so we can figure out how to get there. So let me give you an example of what I've built, and there's a reason that I'm showing you screenshots. This is a real web UI. It's a real web page I've built, but I'm not sharing it because the data is very rough, and I don't want people to look at it and think that this is a final product. This is the beginnings. It's a concept of a plan, right? It's the beginnings of an idea, like we're going to build on it, but we have a lot of work to do to make sure that we actually trust the data, we've collected the right feedback from the community, and everyone agrees on everything. So kind of the process I'm thinking we'll go through is once the AFAC committee has gotten to a good point with the ed specs, we can start to apply that standard to the building as well. We can look at where schools stand, and this will give us a nice comparison, right? That's visible for everybody. One thing I incorporated, and I think this really kind of shows what this committee can do in the meantime, so we're working in parallel while AFAC is working on the buildings, is we can really look at the community assets that are nearby for every single school. So what I've built out so far are things like how close are you to a public library, park and rec after school programs, right? Any sports fields and courts that are already public that we can utilize potentially. We mentioned the United Way survey, right? So making sure that we're taking into account the growth. Any arts programs that are nearby, like community theaters, museums and cultural sites, bus and transit access. I think at the high schools, we need to really think about this because I know we're looking at exploring several different avenues of what that's going to look like. And then, for example, railroads, right? That's something I personally would love to see our kids get away from. And I think there's going to be other types of things like that the community will surface over time that we'll want to incorporate into it. So I think that's kind of the work that we can do now is, as a committee, start looking at both the things that we want and the things that we don't want within the community in the current context that we have. And then when we join up with AFAC, we can start combining. So yeah, here, some of the questions I think we'll start asking are, is the building working the way that it is? Are the kids inside thriving? That's something I think, I know Board Member Adair has some opinions on that we need to incorporate. What's the neighborhood need, right? There's going to be a lot of context of families that are struggling versus families that aren't. What's nearby to help, like we talked about. And then are there any environmental and safety conditions that we want to take into account as we talk about that? So where do we go from here is, like I said, I think we go ahead and start really looking at all of these things in detail for every single school. We start collecting that data. We make sure we trust the data. We start building it out. In the meantime, AFAC continues to do what they're doing. And then we meet up in the fall together. And I think we start to incorporate what AFAC has come up with and add that onto the scorecard. And then we then go out and start asking the community, here's what we've built, now tell us what we're missing, so that we can weigh all the buildings and figure it out. Yeah, so that's kind of the idea. What questions do you have?
Comment, I've been talking about this with Martin a lot over the last few weeks, and I guess from the way I view this is there's two things happening. There's a bunch of data being gathered and looked at, but this is also creating a user interface, something that everyone in the district can easily go to and look at, and it's all together and it's very easy to look through. So it's both kind of a data gathering tool, and which it's still in the process of, but it's also a community interaction tool as well. And with that community interaction tool, we will, continue to build on the data, because the community will look at this and will review it and figure out what it's missing. And so it's kind of hopefully building on itself as we go along. Yes, so that's my thought on that.
I think it's aligned with what the chair said. From my perspective, kind of also being the chair of AFEC, I think it does bring it together in a community story. And it also, I think, can lend to us then also understanding academic return on investment, which we're going to be starting to talk about in both committees a little bit deeper in the fall. And so I think that this is a great tool. I just want to kind of, for the public, also highlight, Martin was not asked to do this. He volunteered to do this. He has created this by using publicly available data. So we have given him no data, just to let everyone know. And he has shared it with us, over time, but really showing us in the past couple weeks what he's built. And so just kind of level setting what this is and what this is not at the moment. I think the district is really excited about this work, and I know internally our data person is just like, this is amazing. So I think it's great, and I really just want to thank you, Martin, for doing this, because you did this all on your own, because you saw a gap and you knew it was important. So I'm just really excited about us, actually starting to learn more about it, working with it, and incorporating it into how we do business here in the district, and education and building and all of it.
Let's go.
Can you give us a couple examples of the data sets that you looked at? I know there's a long list.
Oh man, super long list. And I will tell you, this is where using AI for good feels so good compared to my day job. So things that I have been able to pull in and just so quickly and unbelievably, Census Bureau data, CDC data, HUD data. So the CDC gives you like a vulnerability index. That's how I can start to tell you things about families that might not be able to absorb changes or that really have a stronger need, right? HUD data gives you some more color to that. I'm trying to think. I don't want to mix them up. I think the CDC is the vulnerability index, which is kind of an amalgamation of things. I believe the HUD is the one that gets more specific about like, do you have access to internet? How many cars do you have in your household? Things like that. The Census Bureau data really helps kind of give me a general idea of kind of like the United Way presentation, where are the families at in our district? And then we can use that to kind of apply growth patterns based on what we think we want to do. I pulled in, I'm trying to think. So for everyone's visibility, the city of Columbus Franklin County and the state of Ohio all have OpenGIS data sets, and I was able to pull in and amalgamate all of those data sets. I also did make some public records requests, hence maybe some of my previous questions. So I was also able to do things like pull in the amount of electricity and water. Gas is the one thing I think we're struggling to collect on a consistent basis, right? I got really deep into maintenance so that I could understand what our maintenance costs are per our building, right? So those are some of the data sets where I did make some public records requests, but in general, it's mostly census data, CDC data, HUD data, and then, like I said, any of the OpenGIS data sets. I also haven't even really shared this, but as a total aside, I was really interested about lead and how that might.
I was going to say health. You mentioned me with health issues, yeah.
Yes, and I know our community member, Mr. Lynch, has a lot of thoughts on that I probably need to work on pulling in. But as a curiosity, I was like, I really wonder how lead kind of corresponds to behavioral issues. And so there's a good number of open data sets I was able to pull in with that as well, in terms of like lead pipes and other things like that. So I think what we'll need to do is have a whole page where people can see all the data sets because it's probably at 15, and that's just what I can think of off the top of my head. So, and I will tell you, I can definitely tell that we have decentralized because structures, because probably the hardest and most challenging thing I have come across is being able to connect all the dots by normalizing the data, right? So especially with building names, they've changed over the years because of putting different academic programs in there, or they have slightly different names. So like we might call it in the facilities, Indianola Informal, and then maybe over here in the Columbus public data set, it might be like Indianola, I don't even remember what it is now, but you get the idea of like, I have a whole table that's just what do we call it, what's the state's Department of Education ID, and then all the other names and all the other data sets just to try to normalize it. And these are exactly the reasons why I'm not sharing the full thing, because I know that it has holes in it. And so I definitely want to make sure that we review that, we trust the data, then it looks correct.
Great.
Yeah.
So if I can just I just want to piggyback on what Ms. Adair said. I just want to thank you, right? I want to thank you for doing the work. And I'm impressed with the amount of time and how fast you were able to compile this data. I can see lots of uses for a scorecard similar to this. And I'll pause there and maybe reach out to you to learn a little bit more about what's under the engine here.
Sure.
But as I think about us being able to market, talk about what value and resources are available in neighborhoods, which is part of the superintendent's vision, building stronger neighborhoods. I think it's this type of information that can push us forward in connecting with our community and our partners.
And I brought up when I met with Martin about this too, that if everyone kind of remembers, the board was when we did the first round of closures for that board, that we brought in an expert to try to help us use an equity approach to learn about the neighborhood, and it was bumpy. But the idea was we wanted to incorporate that into the way we were making our decisions. And what I saw, I was like, that's it. That's what it is. So again, when we talk about just better understanding our community, I think Martin has really, and he didn't even know that that's what he was doing, because we sent him that later, because it just makes sense. So yeah.
Great, thank you, Martin. So in progress, we'll see more of this, and I guess be able to share it eventually with I imagine the board committee or the committee members, and then and then eventually the public.
Yeah, I think what might be a wise path forward is having the other committee members help make sure we have the right data from their perspective, right? Then I don't know where I'm going to get the help from, but someone needs to help me verify the data. It can't always be just me, or else I'm going to lose my mind. And then I think once we start to feel good about that, I think that's the right time to go to the public and say, okay, we've gathered everything that we can think of from a public health perspective, from 30 years of teaching, from just being super curious and asking a billion questions, right? Having the construction experience, right? Like now, public, like what are we missing from that?
Great.
Cool.
Thank you.
And money, stop stealing money.
I knew it was in there. I knew it was in there. It's always that's right. That's just a given, right? Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, we're on our final agenda item. This is and as you recall, this was edited at the beginning of a committee by board member Adair. So this is a discussion on the Everett School, and we're going to talk about Duxbury a little bit as well. I have some remarks, and then I wanted to open it up for discussion. My remarks are based on the Everett School, which is at 5th and Hunter, currently the home of the CGA, Columbus Gifted Academy. I will, okay, so I'm gonna read this and then we can talk. So on December 2nd, 2025, the board voted to close a package of schools that included Everett Middle School, AKA the Columbus Gifted Academy, as well as Duxbury. I would like to have an open discussion with the committee and eventually consider a recommendation to rescind the closure of Everett and include it as part of our ongoing efforts and renewal of the master plan and everything we're doing, kind of bring it back into the fold, essentially. The most significant issue is that CGA is a 3rd grade through 8th grade program. This makes moving the school into another school very difficult. It doesn't fit well into either an elementary school. 411 students. It's not a huge elementary school statewide, but it is, a large school, a large school for us. So it doesn't fit perfectly into one of our existing elementary schools. And this move would cause a significant number of students at any school to then be relocated themselves. So it seems like we have a situation where the cure is worse than the disease. And so I just wanted to explore that. This is not a comment on the district's due diligence, but I feel like we have maybe given them an impossible problem to solve by asking them to close this school and move the students elsewhere. They previously, the administration previously came to the board with a consideration of a move of the CGA students to Avondale. But that would have caused a number of the Avondale, the local students, to then be moved. And the problems it caused were significant, and the move was quickly and strongly opposed by both communities, as the board saw, I believe, 2 weeks in the meeting, 2 weeks after this was voted on in December. In addition to the damage that would be caused by the move, there are several other reasons why it makes sense to rescind this closure directive and keep Everett operational. First of all, the Everett building has had many improvements in the past 4 years. These include a upgrade of the fire alarm system. The HVAC system was upgraded and air conditioning was added to the basement 1st and 2nd floor. The auditorium and the cafeteria have been completely renovated. The stage has been upgraded. The library was renovated. The exterior was tuck pointed. It's a brick building, and a number of bricks replaced. A chimney was removed. 5 new cherry trees were planted along the edge of the building. So that was all in the last 4 years. So we've sunk a bunch of money into this building. The space in the building, while labyrinth-ish, also provides the space that is needed to be able to accommodate this 3rd grade through 8th grade program, which requires often multiple arts, music, or gym classes going on at the same time. So it's a program that has kind of evolved into this building, and this is also one of the most valuable properties in the district. It's got a huge, beautiful field right behind it, a lot of land, and I just really want to keep our most valuable assets in the district's hands. So I set that all out for you. I don't know, board member Adair would like to comment further on Duxbury. I don't have as much.
Yeah, so I just straight out disagree with the complete rescission of the resolutions. I do think that the building, because it's not about the program, remember, it's about the building and the building condition.
Are you talking about Duxbury?
No, I'm talking about CGA,
Okay.
Everett. But I think that what these two resolutions, and this is why I wanted to include Duxbury, your points about timeline, about future planning, about that, and the way that the two resolutions were written, it is causing challenge to the administration in terms of how we make these moves. The board did, I mean, because, you know, Avondale for CGA was proposed, the board went, and the board, every board member that went was like, no, I know, like that, no, like that doesn't even make sense. And so, but it is challenging because, again, what we want to do is have facilities that align with the academic programs. We don't want to shove kids into spaces, right? And that's basically the options at this moment in time. But we also have facilities that have been studied and need to come offline because at this point, in order to maintain them, costs more. And so I disagree that we need to keep Everett. I think the board's choice at the time to close the building was the right choice. I would still support that. I think, though, the timeline that we put on, which requires these moves, is maybe at this point in time too restrictive for our administration. I don't think that we can make these moves in the way that's in the best interest of the programs and of the children and of the families in the timelines that are set out in these resolutions. And so it would be, I would like to have a discussion about amending the resolutions to include more flexible timelines. The board also voted to, in these resolutions, to demo these buildings as well. So it is because of the condition. So that's my stance, and that's why I wanted to include Duxbury in this, because Duxbury, for that, at this point, it's my understanding, the district doesn't actually know where that would go. The proposed place that they put it, again, the board walked it and said there's no way. And so, again, Duxbury is the arts program. If we are committed in this district, in this community, to support the arts, and we want this elementary school, okay, and this is going to be a layer 2-3 question in the academic committee, just to put that out there. Same with CGA. These are layer 2-3 services, okay? So we have to have this conversation as a community. Are we investing in these? Do we have good return on investment? But if we want these things, then we actually need spaces that are designed and built for these programs, and we know we don't have it right now. So I would like to discuss not the rescission, because the actual buildings that these two schools are in, they are not in the best condition. But the timeline that we set out, I think, is too aggressive for where we are. And then also remember that once we vacate a property, at this moment in time, we only have a year to figure out what to do with it before we're in the forced sale by the state. And at this point in time, we also have a lot going on where we don't have all of that handled in terms of development and even the properties right now that we have, and that's part of this committee's work too, that we are closing. What are we doing with those properties? So we are a little bit backlogged. So adding more properties where we're vacating could be a problem as well. So that's my suggestion, Chair, is to recommend to the board that we amend the resolutions to change the timeline for when the closures would happen of the buildings. It's not the programs, it's the buildings.
So so not speaking to Duxbury, I need to visit Duxbury. I think that's a good solution. I guess I disagree a little bit with the condition of Everett. I don't feel it's that bad, and maybe that is because I've witnessed how the program has adapted to this school that used to be, you know, a middle school and is a, you know, a larger building. So that's my only concern with changing the timeline and maybe help me figure out the solution to this is the CGA is, feels, you know, is very nervous. You know, it's a whole school operating under the, oh man, they're gonna close their school. Where are we gonna go? What's gonna happen? And I feel like if we just were to bump it out a year, are we still putting them in that situation? Or, you know, we board member Darren and I were also looking at these two resolutions. They're written differently. So the Everett School resolution states that this implement closure of the former Everett School building, which currently has a CGA, to be effective for the 27-28 school year. The Duxbury resolution states, do you have that in front of you?
Yeah, it says no later than on or before January 31, that's for the plan, and then it says will acknowledge the closure and relocation will not occur prior to the 27-28 school year.
So it still says the intention of the board is to move this, but it says it doesn't give a hard date as it does with the Everett School.
I mean, I guess I hear you, Chair. I've walked all the buildings. I completely agree. And I think this is also a mindset thing. In this district, we give people crap. I'm not going to lie. And we say, make it work. And they make it work. They make it work in the most beautiful way, the best they can for their kids. And I'm going to tell you right now, that is, for me, that is not good enough. Like, we need to give them the thing that is actually going to help the program. And so I asked them, I said, if we designed a brand new building for you, what would be different? And a lot was different. The needs of those students was different. And, you know, they could come up with all the ways the building needed to be different. And so, you know, but we are not ready.
Yeah.
We're not ready.
Exactly.
But I think that keeping those commitments and saying, you know what, this building is also a drain on our resources. We're not getting a good investment off of it. It's very expensive. And you did mention investments. We have to keep up with safety and health. Like, so all buildings are getting investments. Even those that we were closing, we're still getting some investments because we have upkeep. Kids are in that, right? Up until the day they're not. And so it's just, that's our responsibility. So, I mean, I think that we need more discussion about this. And you know, I think that me and you have been talking, they haven't been talking yet, but I think that it could be something that we do bring back to the board, because the administration brought these concerns to me too, about the timelines and trying to fit all this in. And then we just have these external pressures from our state house about property. And so I don't think that, I don't think personally that my vote would be the same on the closure of the buildings based on the conditions. I just want to do it in the right way. I don't want to shove these kids into buildings that don't fit.
Yeah, and do it in a way that is not concerning to them. Like, even though this says, you know, we're just closing the building and not the program, I think there is concern.
Well, it's concern for all of them, every
Sure.
single school community that is on the list, and there's more to come. It is concerning to them, and so I also want to, I hear that, I love this community, they are amazing, they are very vocal, they advocate, they know how to advocate, and I want to keep that in mind too, especially when we talk about equity, that, you know, they're loud voices and they're respected, you know, but the point is, anytime we close a building, it's impact and it's hurtful, and it's a community that is going to experience change. So I don't want to minimize that for any of the others that we have chosen to close.
And my concern about equity was less with CGA than wherever it went, and those guys getting knocked out. you know, but so just FYI, just to say that was the most, I don't know, problematic thing to me in this, the Avondale exercise, which was, you know, like you said, you guys visited, you saw it, it was a good exercise to have and to understand the problems that it would cause. Do you think, is a possibility then changing the Everett resolution language to reflect the Duxbury language where
Yeah, it could
this
be.
is our, okay.
And two, and I talked to administration about this. Again, we don't have the answer because really the answer is build a new building,
Yeah.
which that's not
Right.
right now the answer. We just went through that. But we will have movement at some point with future, realignment and things like that where different buildings could make a move. And so we're just not on that timeline right now because we backed up and we were like, wait, we're missing things. We have gaps. We don't have ed specs. We don't have things. We really got to look at FMP, the things our committees are working on. And this is about doing right by our community and making sure all of it's aligned. So I think slowing the timeline down for all of us on these two is the right thing to do, and not putting in these hard deadlines for these two. We're already moving on the other ones.
Yeah.
They're already closing. We're Fairwood, Moeller, Buckeye, those are still going. So, but yeah, I think the language that's more similar to Duxbury, I want to bring up Duxbury because I have also heard that from this community too, right? This limbo, we're in limbo. So even looking at both of those and even maybe extending out where it doesn't say 27, 28, or maybe it says something else, I don't know, or to be honest with you, our legal counsel drafts these, so they would need to get involved and help us, but I hear that.
Okay.
And I think also in reference to the other schools that you mentioned, I'm hearing hearsay. Okay, Fairwood, we're going to go to Ohio. But I think the whole district needs to know this. I don't know where you publicized all this information, but I'm concerned. So whatever decision that was made and you think it's a good fit, tell everyone, be very transparent about how this is coming about, how did you come to this decision, and let's really know so we can get out there and help. Surrounding schools can help, siblings can help. Middle school students can help with their elementary, siblings, and they need help. Our communities need help understanding all this. And the bus situation that Mr. Davis talked of, we need to get them out there saying, yeah, my student's going to ride the bus and I need to know what time. And because I get an experience with my granddaughter, this busing situation, where they didn't even know where she was for 4 hours. And I'm pissed. And that only happened to my granddaughter in the neighborhood where she lives. I know it happens to many other places. Kids falling asleep on the bus, different things like this. They had to wait too long, they went home, then they saw the bus, they ran back. This is dangerous stuff. We need to be more concerned about our busing situation, getting there on time, lowering the time that they're on the bus. We need to be very concerned about that.
Thank you.
Can I say, first of all, I acknowledge that we're well over time a little bit, but I think this is something that obviously we should table. Either way, whether it's adjusting the timeline, I don't feel comfortable making a recommendation either way without us all having the opportunity to, number one, get more information on the state of these buildings. One of my personal biggest concerns is Avondale Elementary, the community geographically in that area. I think I'm not 100% confident on this is the exact right number, but more than half of the families in that Franklinton and farther east part of the west side area who have children are not sending their kids to Columbus City schools.
Avondale is off the table.
Okay.
Just so you know.
Great. Okay.
And so is where they projected Duxbury to go. That's the problem.
Okay.
And so we have a problem. We don't know where they're going.
Exactly, and that was the next part of what I was going to say. obviously I went to Cause, and I also took 5th grade in Everett when it was Indianola's temporary home. And so, I mean, there is an issue with not knowing where people are going to go, but also having to adjust to financial circumstances. So like all of that to say, there's so many pieces to any decision that's going to largely impact an existing school and a community that I personally just feel like as a committee wanting more information on these sites that we haven't discussed in a little while and just kind of tabling it. For the sake of time, too.
I think having administration come in and talk about
Everett and CGA
the
and
challenges.
Yeah.
And I think the whole action of delay, agree. Yeah, no vote now, of course, but we'll come up with some language. I do think the whole point of a resolution like this would be to like slow it down. Like, okay, there's already like a decision made. Let's take that a step back and figure this out and not move anyone until it's part of this larger kind of conversation.
Yeah, and if I may, I was going to say that's exactly why I started doing this, right? Because I think these questions consistently come up, and I think having a framework where we can explain everything across the entire district, right, then brings it into context, and maybe we all feel better about the decisions that we're making.
Just look at the scorecard.
And I think it would give them peace of mind too.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Everett doing that with Everett, even though the district has a plan, it's going to give the community of Everett a peace of mind.
Yeah, the average person is going to say, well, we just got, before I knew a lot more about the ins and outs of this, as a person that went to Cause and is still very close with a lot of the staff that I worked with, as an educator and as a student, the average layperson is going to say, well, didn't we just get new HVAC? Why are we tearing this down? What are they going to do? And so these are conversations that there are a lot of elements. Everything is. It's education, right? So there's a lot of detail and nuance. And
okay.
I can't believe how much reading.
If my heart is following, I agree with you. It's a very valuable, historic, beautiful piece of property in a program that we don't know where they're going to go. But I want to see a lot. I want to see more time to discuss together. Yeah.
Okay.
We could talk about this all night.
Well, it was a hard decision that the board made. The board took months and months.
Yeah.
The community remember the task force did this first.
I know.
These were brought by the task force. The board did it. The board went out. We toured these. It was a long time, so it's a lot.
So I think a good follow-up here is we'll continue this discussion. Maybe we'll work up some language or potential. Let's keep talking about it. Possibly some language, possibly some more information from the district, maybe both. I think does that sound good to everyone?
Yeah, I would love if we could in the next meeting have a high overview of the sites that we've talked about, similar to what we did at the very beginning of this committee, and just have a part of the agenda towards speaking to that so that we can either way say, we want to extend the timeline, we want to rescind, we want to recommend whatever we recommend. Because, I think at the end of the day, people are concerned when they are not sure in the near future where their child is going to be at and what is going to happen with that building.
Yeah.
And even if you don't have kids in the school, if it's Everett, knowing that this is one of the highest traffic areas of the city too, that's just a construction project, that even if you don't have any skin in the game of schools, you're curious about those kinds of things. So I would like that.
Another thing, half the board is gone when those decisions were made.
That's true.
Right.
Yeah.
So they need to be revisited.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you. good opening discussion on that. Appreciate all of you there.
Thank you for bringing that up.
Thank you, committee members. So we're gonna adjourn now. Thank you, committee members. Thanks everyone for your time. Thank you for staying late. Really
do a
appreciate
motion.
all of you. We went all over the
I think you
place
need to do a
there.
motion to close or whatever, right? Adjourn.
Go ahead. Yes. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Yes.
Motion.
Second.
Second. All right. Thank you.
Let's get out of here.
Thank you.